Hi everyone, welcome. Hi Rachel.
Hi, Sally.
So we'll just give it another minute and let a few more people join. Welcome everyone. While we're waiting, I'll give a quick intro for those of you who may not know us. Hi, we're Darrow. We're a legal intelligence company, and what we do is we identify legal violations at scale and turn them into actionable litigation opportunities. We work closely with plaintiffs' law firms across a range of practice areas, including consumer protection, and support everything from class action to mass torts. And so we really do an array of different things. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Welcome again to today's webinar on false reference pricing during the holiday season. I'll start with introductions on our end. My name is Tally Tarigian. I'm part of the Legal Intelligence Quality Counsel team here at Darrow. I'm a plaintiff's litigator by training, and within Darrow, I'm part of the legal intelligence team. Essentially, it's functioning kind of as production. We're the group uncovering violations, we're gathering and analyzing data, building the case insights that ultimately go out to plaintiffs' firms. And my role specifically focuses on quality and strategy, making sure the legal violations, the legal theories, excuse me, the data, the overall insights that we're producing are up to top quality and litigation ready. And Rachel, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rachel Postman. I come from both a litigation and tech transactional and product counseling background, and I am also part of the legal intelligence team. I work closely with the geniuses creating our tools, advising them on all aspects of the law, and then I also get to work with go-to-market and product lifecycle teams.
Amazing. So Rachel, before we get into the weeds on process, technology, and all of that fun stuff, I think it's worth it for our listeners just to zoom out for a moment. And maybe you can, kick us off and start with discussing why this time of year, the holiday season, is especially important when we're talking about false reference pricing.
Right. So I'm going to assume familiarity of our listeners with this practice. I mean, we've all experienced it. This screaming sale, 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 limited time, buy now, time is running out. And then it's another sale and it's another sale. And then obviously this time of year, it escalates. Black Friday turns into Cyber Monday, turns into another sale. And we're all kind of conscious of this. Uh, Everybody loves a sale, but what's really going on behind it is competition for more consumers and some deception, right? So I think we all know this. And Tully, maybe do you want to say more about what's really underlying this practice and what the harm really is? Like what is the harm in a sale?
Yeah, definitely. I'll add a few things here because it's very important. You know, I feel like the harm here is kind of underestimated in a way, but if you think about it, if you kind of zoom out, it really is widespread. And what's especially unique and important about this particular area is that it affects all of us. We are all consumers. Everybody listening to this webinar right now is a consumer in their own way. And it really is a global, more societal issue. And especially during the holidays, I mean, people are spending their hard-earned money, assuming that, they're getting a deal and a sale, and really they're not. And that's unfair. That's deceptive to consumers. And as I said, some people maybe end up paying more. It's, harmful also to the broader market. Honest retailers who are actually, being transparent with their pricing, actually end up getting, somewhat screwed over in the end because people lose faith in the market. And so it really can affect all e-commerce more generally, which is why it's so widespread as well. And we're really focused on these bigger violations. The mom and pop shop one-off banner is really not what we're focused on. We're focused on, these larger companies where the deception is widespread, and they're not being honest, they're not being transparent, and it's affecting, everyday consumers.
Right, and I actually I've seen research that shows, well, one, this conduct is escalating all year round, but obviously the competition at the holiday time is more intense, so it escalates even more. And also there have been consumer research groups actually doing price comparisons and showing that people often end up paying more than
Yeah,
they otherwise would. So, and of course they buy more, which is why the practice exists. So,
definitely.
um, let's maybe dig in a little more to what we do at Darrow to find these violations at scale, as you mentioned, because that's the exciting part here. I think if everybody on here probably is aware of this practice and knows that this litigation exists, but what we're doing now to develop tools to try to scale this up in relation to the scaling up of the conduct.
Right, the tech angle to the legal side of things, which is
Yeah.
especially unique when you bring law and tech together. It's really really creative, really unique, and I think it's especially, important for what we're doing here. So we're focused on scaling and being as selective as we can. We don't track everyone, but we do track a very, a big amount of large
Right, we don't
e-commerce.
track the entire internet. That's not
Of course not.
not
We're
really
not tracking.
possible yet.
Yeah, no, of course not. Of course not. By everyone, I mean e-commerce sites. We can't track all e-commerce sites. So we are selective in the specific companies that we're monitoring. The ones with, high traffic, significant revenue, a broad consumer reach, is really what we're looking at. And basically, we are tracking and we are monitoring these large e-commerce sites. And what the tool is especially unique and what it's able to do is it's able to, kind of monitor every day continuously on sale products on each e-commerce site, and actually able to gather and extract the data out and store it in our tool. And we're actually able to go into this tool and see both a very zoomed out version where it comes out as a graph, as well as seeing a very zoomed in version, which is actually looking at the specific screenshots from the everyday products that are on sale and actually seeing how long they've been on sale for, what that sale looks like, and really zooming into each specific product, which is really, really cool and really unique. And it's interesting once you're actually in it and you're actually in the tool and you're really seeing that a lot of these e-commerce sites are really, keeping sales on for far too long. And it goes past the 3 month period. And so you can really dig into the data. And we have, a really, really comprehensive and large data set here, which is really cool. And Rachel, when you first saw how long some of these limited time sales actually last, was that surprising to you as somebody, in the consumer protection world, or did you kind of do?
I mean, yes and no. Like I was aware that this practice went on. I think the extent of it, and as someone who's been in the compliance world, the
Yeah.
extent of it was a little bit surprising. And also because with this tool, we do continue to track, and both of us have been here for over a year now and seen how far the tool has come and how we broadened our reach to more sites and the greater accuracy. So yeah, I think the scale of it is still being uncovered, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say also what we're able to do with this tool is kind of have a better an understanding at a very high level and very quickly, which is why it's very efficient to kind of understand or at least estimate damages on a very high level, which is very unique. And as I mentioned before, it allows us to really focus on these big, violating e-commerce sites, and put less resources and focus on the little guys, so to speak. And that's, really important here because we're really looking to help the greater society, and that comes with, the e-commerce sites that are the biggest and have the biggest outreach. And so the tool is really interesting that way because the way that, it's analyzing the data and gathering the data and kind of shooting it back out in graph form allows us to be able to prioritize, which I think is very important for efficiency and what we're doing here, and which is, quite unique.
Yeah,
Um,
and that takes us into the next topic. I think we wanted to talk about more in detail about how we identify the highest impact litigations and how we value the cases and how we sort of, how we identify and make the highest impact here. So that's also
Absolutely.
an exciting area that I've seen a lot of development in, and I've worked on. I think we both worked on extensively
Yeah.
to try to, better estimate and be more efficient internally on where we focus, where we put our resources. Because again, this is huge amounts of data. It's not free to be monitoring and storing
Yeah.
all this data. So we worked on developing that area, and of course, we're always refining it. And taking it back to this holiday season, I think it is sort of exciting where, you know, we're seeing some of the fruits of that right now. Um,
Absolutely. And when we're talking about like a high impact case or potential case, how would you think about that? Like what key criteria would you be looking at?
well, of course, it's number of consumers affected, and we use various, we need to use various proxies for that. Obviously, we can't, you know, hack it. We're not hacking into individual people's e-commerce practices,
No, of course not.
individuals' purchases and data. We're using all public information, so we always need to work with what we have, and some of that is we've broadened the amount of products per site that we can monitor and use that as the sample number of products and use that as a percentage and looking at other indicia on the sites, other marketing claims that are being made, about how widespread on each site, and of course the size of the business, the reach of the business.
So
Um,
yeah, and I would say also, we're able to, with our tool, kind of filter some of that criteria, which is really, really cool. And as I mentioned, very, very important for efficiency and for being able to scale up quickly. And I would say also something, somewhat unique is we're able to kind of put ourselves into the mindset of, the user, the everyday consumer, and how they may operate on the website and
which, as
read
you pointed
about
out, we all
terms.
really are. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so we're able to really go through some of the terms and conditions and think about how a user, let's say with no legal background, is just going on a random e-commerce site and buying something that they think is on sale and what that looks like. And so, that's also really interesting about our tool is that we're really able to filter and it's incredibly efficient that way. So we're filtering for the best of the best, and those are the cases that we ultimately end up writing and moving forward with. So it's very interesting. Another question I have for you, I just thought about how would you say, the evidence that we're gathering would compare to other complaints that you've seen in this area? How does our evidence compare?
Right. Well, obviously these cases have existed for a long time. The laws prohibiting this kind of deceptive practice have existed for a while. The FTC has regulations on this. And so, you know, there are other rough technology tools. I think Wayback Machine can sometimes capture pages. It's not predictable what it captures. It's a very rough way to do it. You could track manually. An individual could choose to do an investigation, but it's really difficult to get the level and detail of. I mean, it's impossible to get the level and of detail and daily evidence, or even
Oh,
weekly, that we're building with our tool. And so it's a much greater detail. It gives a better idea of the scope of the violation earlier on. It again helps us value the case more accurately. it helps give confidence that this is really a large scale practice, and you don't have to make assumptions. And again, like we do want to really go after the practice where it's happening, and not sort of just randomly, you know, we're not trying to chase down some random sale that has gone a couple days too long because someone forgot to turn it off, or there's a
Yeah.
small website, issue. We're really, this really helps us identify accurately the larger scale
Yeah, we're
violation.
we're able to track hundreds of products on one singular site at once, which is incredible. And we're really gathering the sort of like historical data here. And like I said, like we've been discussing, you know, taking daily screenshots and extracting that data and gathering it in a very organized manner. It's really unique, and it's really exciting. So
Yeah, so I think we wanted to leave time for some questions coming in. Do we have, I think we might have a couple.
yeah, I think we do. I can see a few. Um, okay, I can go ahead and read the first. So what factors most strongly influence the economic value of a false reference pricing case?
Well, I think this goes to what we were talking about in terms of uh, estimating the number of consumers affected is obviously a big aspect of it, the reach of the business. Um, Sometimes, the higher value items are obviously making the value of the amount invested by the consumer magnifies the scope of it. But that also, can sometimes mean it's fewer purchases, so you have to balance that. Um,
Absolutely. Also, the potential defendants, operations and how widespread,
right,
wide scale they are. Like we're obviously focusing on e-commerce sites. Something that, we do think about from time to time is also physical stores. And, how large is this company in the United States? It's something that we're considering as well. That definitely has an impact and a value.
right.
Yeah. Okay. So the second question we got, what strategies help push these cases toward quicker settlement? So that's an interesting
Yeah, well,
one.
that's always hard to predict, right? Because a lot of it has to do with the defendant's situation, which we do also look at, the different settlement pressures that might exist. But that's part of strategy. That's part of, what litigators do. What we try to do is bring the strongest evidence possible. And that actually that and obviously there's often motions to dismiss filed. There's sort of known arguments that are made in these cases. We try to equip clients to be the best prepared for this. But really, in my experience as a litigator, mediations and settlement conversations, it does really help to come armed with a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
information that you otherwise wouldn't get until discovery. So we do bring that to the
Oh,
table.
absolutely. There's something to be said coming with a complaint that also has, exhibits of, 3 months worth of 100 products violating on the site. I mean, that's really unique, as we've said. So it's definitely important.
Right. And
Um,
we also, and I would say that like we still, as we continue and over time, we do continue to be building that data set ongoing. So it shows the pattern and the larger pattern. So it's harder for a defendant to make a credible claim, even to during negotiation process that whatever they're saying in their responses to say,
yeah,
yeah, it's not a larger pattern when we see the larger pattern. So
absolutely. Yes, completely agree. Okay, so we actually have another question that's very interesting and about the tech. Can you say more about how the tech navigates the websites?
right.
Um,
So
yeah.
I'm not actually the builder of the tech, and I'm not going to get too into the weeds, but is actually really challenging. This data is very messy, and there's a lot of it. But one of the most exciting things I've seen in my time working with the team and over time, the tool has, and they're always working on this, is to actually be able to detect changes in the site as a whole, change it, and not just it's not just monitoring pricing comparisons in isolation from the rest of the site. It's monitoring overall site changes, structural changes, um, changes to the main page and the advertising, the site navigation. And so this, one of the challenges that often arises in this type of litigation is changes in the site that may not be trackable and that may, create doubts about evidence or about, what really occurred in the past. And so we're always refining that aspect, refining
Totally.
our ability to store historic information and to track changes to create more reliability in all of the evidence.
Of course. Yeah, it's very, very important, because sometimes different products, their URL can change. Like
Yeah,
you said, there's changes to the site goes under construction or in the sales section, et cetera, et cetera. And so, if the robots that, our tool is using were not flexible or sophisticated enough, then, they wouldn't be able to almost like track down this product that's perhaps changed in its URL or changed a little bit, or it's moved from one section to another, but it's still on sale. And so
right.
it's also, speaks to the sophistication of our robots, which is really, really unique and cool. And of course, we're always trying to advance the technology. That's just like an ongoing process. But I
Right.
would say, what we have now is especially unique and interesting. Um, and that, just goes to show what we're doing here and just, the advancements in technology. And it's so interesting coming from like a legal background and being a part of the tech stuff. Did you ever think, Rachel, that you would ever be, knee deep in scraping and monitoring and understanding a technology tool to better society?
I maybe hoped, and I've worked with a lot of engineers and a lot of data people, and so the enormity of the data out there is, I think we all are pretty aware of it, but I guess what I never really thought of when I initially heard about this tool and started working with the team was I assumed it was complex, but then the number of things that can come up and the amount of flexibility the tool needs to have and the amount of iterations and the patience and the work the team really puts in and the detail level is quite incredible.
Absolutely. And the different robots that navigate different things on the site. The team has really thought of everything. And I mean, they're still trying to think of even more. It's always, like I said, as we've said, it's always advancing, it's always growing, it's always getting better. But it's really incredible. Just thinking of all different angles. Like I would never think that, it's true, after 2.5 months, sometimes a URL can change. And the site can go under construction, and that could, potentially get screwy with something monitoring the site. But as we discussed, our robots and the tool is so sophisticated and advanced, it's able to kind of navigate these changes to the site. So we're almost monitoring the website more generally, in addition to the specific products on sale that are violating, which I think is like especially cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so our final question. Why is the holiday season a perfect storm for these violations? And I know we've spoken about this a little bit, but I'm glad that we're gonna end off on this because it's important and it's very relevant.
Well, I mean, I think we all experience this ourselves, and it's more than just, the fatigue of the spam. It's people are trying to do their holiday shopping. They are spending a lot more money, and there's there's competition for those dollars. And so the retailers are like really escalating this conduct, and more consumers are being harmed by it because more consumers are spending more money. So the scale of it is magnified.
Absolutely. And as we said in the beginning of the webinar, we're all consumers. Like it really does affect all of us. And where there's a psychological pull per se to a deal that's not necessarily a deal, it's unfair. It's unfair to the broader market. It's unfair to the consumer. And it really is important. And especially, people are working hard for their money and they're often buying gifts during this time, the holiday season for others. And, it's important that these large e-commerce sites and these large companies are really being transparent and honest about their pricing. It's incredibly important.
Agreed. As a huge e-commerce shopper.
Right? I know, me too. Okay, I think that's time. So that's it for today. Thank you all so much for joining us. We hope you found this discussion helpful and interesting. And if you're interested in working together, or just wanting to chat about all things law and tech, we'd love to connect. So you can reach us at contact@darrow.ai. And feel free to reach out to us individually. My email address is Tally, spelled Tali, Torigian, Torigin, @darrow.ai,
My
or Rachel.
email's Rachel, Rachel dot postman, Postman, like the mailman, at darrow.ai.
Amazing. Thank you so much again. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.